Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the discipline of economics as a science, as a social science. And I want to point out something really important about the approach that economists take to economic analysis, which is namely one that's rooted in the foundations of science. So even though economics is formally a social science, we really want to emphasize the science aspect, meaning what economists want to do is they want to look around the world and try to come up with a model that's going to help better understand or explain or predict something about that world. The basic idea is, well, economists are going to use models, just like you might have a model of the human body in an anatomy or physiology class, or you might have a model of the solar system. You might have a globe, which is a model of the Earth. Like in the sciences, we use models all the time. In economics, we use models as well. Oftentimes, these are mathematical models. But the basic idea is that economists are going to want to use models. They're going to want to simplify down reality. We're not trying to perfectly represent the real world. Instead, what we're trying to do is we're going to abstract away, by virtue of making assumptions, all the unnecessary complicating details, and then focus on specifically what it is that we're interested in studying. That's the idea with using models. In doing so, in making the models, and the point of making the models, we're trying to form and test hypotheses. We're going to gather evidence, we'll inspect the performance of the model, and then if need be, we'll go back and revise the model. So my comment here is, like, when the model doesn't perform well, let's see the reasons as to why the model didn't do so good, and then try to work to improve the model and ultimately our understanding. It could be when economics fails to give us the right answer, or fails to give us a useful answer, it could be that the model's simply not up to the task. And one of the things that can be responsible for this is if the model's resting on assumptions that just don't apply to the situation. So you want to actually kind of be careful about that from the outset. Whatever model you're bringing to bear in your economic analysis, you want to say, oh, is this the right model for this question? Right? You don't want to model healthcare as a perfectly competitive market if you think there's a monopoly. Right? So you want to think about using the right economic model in the right way. And then there's little ways that we could change particular aspects of the model to be able to incorporate new evidence and new information. And this ultimately gives rise to this sort of dynamic, sort of changing field, just as science is. Ultimately revising our models, revising our understanding, trying to get a better sense of the fuller picture, but in this really deliberate sort of logical, scientific manner of forming and testing hypotheses, getting evidence, rejecting bad ideas, and then reformulating theories. This is exactly what economics and economists are after, ultimately. And so even though economics is formally a social science, we really want to think about what are the elements from science that we're borrowing and trying to bring into our analysis. It's not just opinion. It's not just judgments. It's not just policy. It's those things and being informed specifically by the facts and by the economic models and the empirical evidence that we're observing.